I'm Rob McConnell, and welcome to the X Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Today on the X Zone, the Great Lakes Triangle of North America. Found in the heartland of North America, these landlocked yet connected lakes, which eventually empty into the Atlantic Ocean, have become the scene of more mysteries involving ships, aircraft, people, UFOs, ghosts, and phantom ships than the Bermuda Triangle. 1/16th the size of the Bermuda Triangle, Lady John Graves Simcoe was the first European to chronicle the strange orbs of life that have been seen above and below the waters of Lake Ontario. First Canadians tell of great cities which surrounded the Great Lakes where men flew without wings. The Great Lakes Triangle of North America, one of the world's greatest mysteries, right in our own backyard.
All Hit Radio.
Welcome to the X Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
And welcome back to the X Zone, everyone. I am Rob McConnell, and for the next 2 hours, I will be your host and your guide as together we cross the time-space continuum to this place that I call the X Zone. It's a place where people dare to believe and dare to be heard. It's a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. And the X Zone comes to you Monday through Friday from 10 p.m. Eastern until midnight, right here on your hometown radio, Classic 1220, streaming around the world on classic1220.ca. Now, if you'd like to send me an email, it's very simple. The email address is xzone@classic1220.ca, and I will get back to you as soon as I can. Wow, we're going to be talking about demons, demonology, and the darker side of the paranormal this hour with our guest, Nathaniel Gillis. And Nathaniel is in Dayton, Ohio. And Nathaniel, welcome to the X Zone.
Thank you for having me, sir. It's great to be with you.
It's great having you here, too. Tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got to do that thing you do with the demonology.
I'll tell you what. So it all began for me when I was 8 years old. My parents had moved into a new house. Mm-hmm. And when we were actually looking at the house prior to purchasing it, my dad took me by the hand and led me into my future room. And he basically said, Nathaniel, take a look around, figure out where you're going to be placing your chest of drawers, your bed, and all of your stuff. And so I was. And for some reason, I felt compelled to look underneath the bed that was in the corner of the room. And to my astonishment, when I looked underneath the bed, there was a full-bodied apparition of what appeared to be an 8-year-old girl. She had long black hair. She was wearing a white linen dress that looked to have been made during the turn of the century. And I didn't know who she belonged to. At first blush, I thought that she maybe lived in a neighborhood or something and snuck in. I had no idea. But once we moved into the house, that entity mutated in its pathology. And by the time we moved out of the house, it had turned into a malevolent haunting. Hands down. And so that was my very first encounter with this phenomenon we're researching.
Now, when you say malevolent haunting, what kind of haunting activity was there?
Oh, my goodness. Well, I can tell you this. There was, at nighttime, there was what's called DVP, direct voice phenomenon. And so I would wake up from a dream or a nightmare, and I could hear two entities conversing with each other just above my head. And more than that, there would be this kind of smoky ball or a cloud that would hover in the corner of the room at nighttime.
Wow.
And then here's what's the craziest part about it was that the entity would induce me into looping nightmares. And what's so crazy about this, even to this date, I'm 35 years old, it still sticks with me. But I had no frame of reference for anything that these nightmares consisted of. None whatsoever. For instance, I didn't know what addiction was. I didn't know what insulin was or anything remotely close to that. And yet in these nightmares, they were the same nightmare every time. But they consisted of me walking towards a shelter at a park. And there were two young men, maybe about 20, 21 years old. And they were sitting on a picnic table with their backs turned towards me. The gentleman on the right had a needle stuck in his left arm. And like I said, I had no historical reference for that. I had no idea what he was doing. And he never turned around, never noticed I was there, but the gentleman on the left did. And when he turned around, he kind of grinned, he made eye contact, and then he pulled out a black 357 Magnum. And it's going to get dark real quick, but this is just telling you exactly what I went through. But he put it in his mouth, my friend. He put it in his mouth and pulled the trigger, at which over and over again I would shake myself awake. There would be a cold chill in the room, and there would just be this pervasive darkness all over the place, and I could feel it feeding off of my fear. And so that's, I mean, of course, there were other manifestations. The entity would displace its weight on our wooden floors. I saw shadow figures, but the whole gamut was present. But that was instrumental in leading me into the field that I'm in today.
Now, prior to moving into this house, had you had any experience whatsoever with the paranormal?
Not at all, sir. Not at all. I didn't even know what it was.
How about your family? Did they suffer any ill effects from the paranormal events that you were participating in?
Not in that house. Not in that house. Now, when we moved across town into a new home, my mother did encounter shadow people. And that was her first experience with the phenomenon. But to my knowledge, neither of them, even my younger brother, none of them experienced what I experienced. And it was quite a shock. For a little bit, I thought I was going crazy. I didn't understand exactly what was going on. But, I'm not alone in that. There are plenty of experiences out there where they're the only individual in the entire family that are witnessing this phenomenon. So for whatever reason, I was the only one.
Exonation, Nathaniel Gillis is my special guest, and we're talking about demons, demonology, the dark side of the paranormal, right here on the X-Zone on Classic 1220. Any idea throughout the years that you've been researching the demonology and the darker side as to why you, the only person within your family that has been having these encounters of a demonic type?
I have no idea, brother. No idea. I know that there are certain people in this world that are given gifts and different sensitivities to the spirit world. And I believe personally, this is just my conviction, that sometimes the phenomenon will target them with suicidal ideation or addiction, or what I call the disfigurement of destiny, where for whatever reason, the phenomenon does not want to deal with them. They're a threat to this intelligence we're all researching. And I believe that to be the case. I mean, the entity that I encountered, it wanted me to commit suicide. And to this day, there are times when I get too deep into the research and it gets too dark, I'll feel that entity creep up on me.
Oh, gosh.
And for a fleeting moment, I'm back in my bed at 3 a.m, paralyzed in terror. But, it's just a part of the field. It's a part of the research, and it's a part of being who I am, and I believe who I'm called to be.
You said some people have this gift. To me, it sounds like your gift is a curse.
Oh, yes. It is in a way. The phenomenon will target us. And I've actually worked with experiencers who they became addicted to substances and alcoholism, drug abuse, mainly because they've never been able to deal with the traumatic events they went through in a haunted house or in a possession case or something of the like. And it's interesting because this gets into magic and what we would consider to be initiatory practices. I mean, you could have 15 different people perform the same rituals, perform even prayers, perform the same prayers, and only one of them will get results. And I can't put my finger on it, but there are people who are more in tune with the spirit world than others.
1 out of 15 who get the results, do they get the results in all aspects of the testing, or is it only in one specific prayer or one specific incantation, or is it just one, or is it right across the board?
It depends on the person, but usually if it's successful in one genre, it's going to be equally, if not more successful in another.
Yeah.
It's so interesting to me because, again, the phenomenon will target people. And it's almost like and I don't know if it can do this, but it's the implication suggests that it can, but it's almost like it sees into the future. And it would rather take people out now than have to deal with them later on. I mean, that's the only way I can rationalize it.
So if they take certain people to deal with them now, this would kind of implicate that, or not implicate, but show evidence that they have dealt with these people like yourself before in a previous life, and they know what the future is going to be, so they want to take care of you now before you get the strength or the ability to fight them off or eradicate them.
Correct. And there are a few people out there that can actually see the veil. And if anything is true about the phenomenon, it does not want to be seen for what it is. And that's what I really believe in.
Before we go any further, how would you describe or define a demon?
There are two hypotheses throughout history, or at least two dominating theories. One is that a demon is a mutated ghost, and the other theory is essentially that it's a fallen angel. Now, I have my own grievances with the fallen angel hypothesis because the term fallen angel isn't even written in the Bible. It's a construct created after it was written. But, those are the two dominating theories. But I'm going to say this, and it's going to be shocking, but it took me a long time of being in the field, doing cleansings, and then performing academic work to come to this conclusion. But I believe that there is a singular intelligence that is masking itself as both demonic and ET in order to hide from us. And there is evidence to suggest that, which we'll get into before the night's over.
Sure. Sounds like a plan, my friend. Exonation, our guest this hour is Nathaniel Gillis, and if you'd like to check him out on Instagram, it's the Nathaniel Gillis, and he also has a YouTube channel. Just go to YouTube and type in Nathaniel Gillis. This is the X-Zone. I am Rob McConnell. We're coming to you from our broadcast center and studios in St. Catharines, Ontario, Canada, on your hometown radio, Classic 1220, and streaming around the world on classic1220.ca. You can always send me an email, xzone at classic1220.ca, and Nathaniel and I will be back on the other side of this, kind of short commercial break, right here in the X-Zone, where we search for answers, but you know what? We're also demanding the truth. Nathaniel and I will be back on the other side of this break. Don't go away. And welcome to your hometown radio, Classic 1220, coming to you from our broadcast center and studios in St. Catharines, Ontario, Canada, and streaming around the world on classic1220.ca. Nathaniel Gillis is our special guest this hour. We're talking about evil. We're talking about demons. We're talking about shadow people, as well as all aspects of the darker side of the paranormal. Before we went to the break, you kind of gave us a little bit of a teaser when you were talking about the alien demon connection. Can we get into that? Because that sounds rather ominous and yet very intriguing.
Yes, sir. It's been an interest of mine now for many years. But my hypothesis now, and this is going to be kind of disappointing to those who follow me, because people try to put me in a box. They hear demonologist, and so they think that I'm either Catholic or I'm somebody that goes in and slings holy water. Nothing against any of that. I'm kind of a hybrid. Okay, yeah. Kind of a hybrid. And my research as of late has been centered around the interconnectivities between the demonic and the ET. And there is evidence that I will quote here in a little bit, but there is evidence that suggests that both of them are in fact masks of a singular intelligence. And this intelligence is in largely it's in control of a lot of things in our life and in this world. But even more than that, it has evolved according to our awareness of it. And so. Go ahead. No,
I was just going to say, it sounds like whoever or whatever this entity is who can mask as the negative side of society as well as the positive side. Where does this fit in with religious philosophies?
Well, even right now, if you look at the evangelical researchers, they're starting to come to a very startling conclusion. Whatever we're dealing with, my friend, has eclipsed the microcosm of known demonology. Whatever this intelligence is, it does not obey any known rules within demonological theory. What do you mean, Nathaniel? Let me say it like this. I had a case study about 2 or 3 years ago now, where an individual, his father, was a famous remote viewer. And he would often go out of body, and it was almost like a UFO abduction. He would enter in this metallic room, and his guides would flank him on the right and left sides. Well, they would give him insights, prophecies, and then when he would get back into his body, he would then call like a famous celebrity or a local politician and give them poll numbers and insights into their campaign. Well, one night, his father went into one of his sessions, and everything was going according to the protocol. However, when he arrived in this metallic room, these beings had appeared to him, and at first blush, they did look like his guides. But when he was there, he started to look at them more intensely, and he noticed that there were certain features about them that did not belong to his guides. In fact, it was almost like these beings were trying to play the role without really fulfilling it to the T. So there were certain facial features, there were certain aspects of the mask that did not belong to the original guides of his. And this is fascinating, but this will tell you where we are right now in the field. As soon as he realized that these guys were just lying to him, they were deceiving him, he said they changed their appearance into something that looked inhuman. Next thing he knows, and this is his son's testimony now, he said, next thing I know, he said, I was downstairs. My father comes stumbling down the stairway. He's inconsolable. He's white as a sheep, and he's crying his eyes out. He said, he said, my father had a massive heart attack. And he said, by the time we got him to the hospital, there were subdermal scarifications from underneath the skin moving to the surface of religious amulets. One religious amulet, well, there were 3 of them, but one was the Star of David, The other one was a cross, but upwards towards his neck there was an arching Egyptian hieroglyph. So whatever we're dealing with, I'm leaning more towards sorcery or sorcerers in the way that they're employing their rituals and their symbolism.
Do you think that this is the historic fight between good and evil that has been plagued upon this planet and we humans since day one?
Yes. And whatever we're dealing with, they're playing by different rules, my friend. And it took me a while to get to this point, reading demonological literature, the book phenomenon, the abduction phenomenon, missing fetus syndrome, all of the above. I started to realize that the reason they're playing by different rules is because they're playing a different game. And much of what we've come to know as demonology has merely been propaganda employed by the phenomenon in an effort to evade us. And it's a troubling aspect.
How do we make the connection between demons and alien abduction?
It's very easy. It's very easy. So, I mean, if you get back to the missing fetus syndrome, even,
right,
that phenomenon did not originate in ufology. It originated in antiquity, specifically, and not just in antiquity, but in the 16th century, when we started to have the advent of what were called dream demons. Essentially, women were going to bed at nighttime and being induced into a dreamlike state. An entity would then manifest to them in the nightmare. Then it would assault them. And I'm not going to get, too deep into it.
Yeah, please don't, because we're a family. We're a family station, right?
Yeah, definitely not going to do that. But
I appreciate it.
Yeah. So and they had the female, the woman would encounter this entity. And then the next day, she would think, okay, it's just a dream. It's just a nightmare. And then while she's at work, she looks down and there are ligature marks on her hands and wrists that directly correlate with the nightmare she had the night before. And to go even deeper here, we're starting to draw out what I consider to be the Multer pathology. That entity would then possess the woman. Is it okay if I say that? I mean, I don't want to, but it would then possess the woman to the point that she would start having different memories that did not belong to her experience. And so then what they would do is these women multiple women, they would present themselves to the exorcists. And more than being possessed by the entity, these women were known to have two pulses in the same body.
Whoa. How can you have two pulses in the same body?
There we go. You're going to catch it, brother. When you see it, you're going to be like, oh my God. So the two pulses in the same body, even more than that, two heartbeats in the same body. And when these women were introducing themselves to the exorcist, they were possessed by the entity, but they looked to have been with child. They looked to have been pregnant. Hence the two heartbeats and two pulses. This phenomenon led demonologists to ask probably the most profound question ever, at least in this field. And that was, is this woman possessed by the entity, or is she pregnant with it?
That's a heavy question.
It's a profound question, my friend. And so what occurred there, and it's incredible because, again, sometimes the phenomenon will slip up. And we can see beyond the veil, and this is one of those moments. Well, what happened was these women were, presenting themselves to the exorcist. When the exorcism was successful, the phenomenon took both the consciousness inside of the woman and the fetus that she was pregnant with at the same time. That is in demonology, but we would know that right now as the missing fetus syndrome in ufology.
But is there any evidence to support these claims? Any medical records or any substantial or physical proof? Because I hear where you're coming from, and I know after doing this show for 30 years, anything is possible.
Right.
However, new people listening are saying, "Oh, come on, really?" So how do we tell the people, or how do we show the people that yes, there is evidence to substantiate these claims? Are
Well,
there medical records?
yes, in terms of modernity, absolutely there are medical
Wow.
records. And the problem, though, that we're finding is that these doctors, gynecologists, all of the above, they're not willing to risk their careers to validate research that they consider to be fringe. And we know that even the documentary Extraordinary Seeding,
Hmm.
they discuss that in depth, almost ad nauseum in a way. But absolutely. And so, but regarding the 16th century Die Blute phenomenon, what we have are basically them documenting it uh, to the best of their ability without the scientific method. But in terms of modernity, yes, we do have evidence of that, both within the UFO abduction phenomenon and within the incubi case studies.
Now, according to ufologists, there are over
Mm,
100 different species of aliens that are visiting this
correct.
planet and are on this planet at this very time.
Hmm.
Is it possible that what we consider to be ETs are actually demons, and that these ETs have nothing to do with, somewhere out there, but actually another dimension, and when they manifest in this dimension into a physical form, that we have perceived them to be or have been given thought by these ETs or by these demons as to who they really are not. For example, they're not demons. Oh well,
Right.
let's get the humans to call us aliens from another planet. Is this
Hmm.
how, in your opinion, they work?
Well, I do believe they employ masks.
Hmm.
They do like to veil themselves, and they do what's called. There are two things that they do. Number one, it's called the manufacturing of consent, and number two, it's called perception management. But to your question, that is one theory that we are in fact dealing with demons that are masquerading as the ET. Now, I'm just going to say this. There is evidence to suggest that as well. I mean, if you look back at the beginning of the UFO craze in the
Yeah.
1950s, yes, George Adamski, George Hunt Williamson, most of these experiencers encountered these ETs by virtue of building stone altars, just like
Yeah.
the pagan gods in antiquity, and making sacrifices. And I mean, even George Hunt Williamson, he was contacting ETs by virtue of a homemade Ouija board. So there are interconnectivities, um, but again, the phenomenon will employ masks, and I think that's where we are at in the field. Is okay. How do we vet it?
Well, on this show we have something called commercials that we have to take. So please stand by, Nathaniel. Thanks very much for joining us tonight. Very interesting conversation. Exonation, our guest is Nathaniel Gillis. He's on Instagram, the Nathaniel Gillis, and also on YouTube. Just get to YouTube and type in Nathaniel Gillis. This is the X Zone. I am Rob McConnell. We're coming to you from our broadcast center and studios in St. Catharines, Ontario, Canada, on your hometown radio, Classic 1220, and around the world on classic1220.ca. Skeptic or believer, send me your email, xzone@xzoneradiotv.com, or right here to the studio, xzone@classic1220.ca.
I'm Rob McConnell, and welcome to the X Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Today on the X Zone, the world of psychic fairs. Throughout Canada, psychic fairs spring up in towns and villages of all sizes. Now, what is the best way of choosing a psychic at a psychic fair? According to Stan and Ray, organizers of First Star Famous Psychic Fairs, visitors to a psychic fair should walk around the fair a number of times until they're drawn to a particular psychic, and you can visit their website at www.e-psychic.com. Never be pressured into getting a reading from a psychic that you just don't feel comfortable with. If you're not satisfied with your reading, tell the psychic. And remember, people, psychic readings at a psychic fair are for entertainment purposes only.
She's got the devil in her heart, but
Welcome back, everyone. This is the X-Zone. I am Rob McConnell, and you're listening to the X-Zone radio show right here from our broadcast center and studios in St. Catharines, Ontario, Canada, on your hometown radio, Classic 1220, and streaming around the world on classic1220.ca. Nathaniel Gillis is our special guest. We're talking about demons, extraterrestrials, the darker side of the paranormal, shadow figures, and much more. If you'd like to find out more about Nathaniel, visit his Instagram account. That is the Nathaniel Gillis. And he also has a YouTube channel. All you need to do is just go to YouTube and type in Nathaniel Gillis. All right, this whole thing with ETs and ETs and demons, this seems to be, well, hard to believe that this has been going on for so long, and we're just cluing in now.
That's a good point, and to a degree, I've witnessed researchers in the field articulating the same thing. The problem is, my friend, that many of us have been so focused on the phenomenon's current incarnation, i.e. the ET.
You're right.
That we've neglected the other case studies that preceded this new incarnation. Case in point, in Witch Era literature, for those who are book readers like I am, probably like you are, sir, you're very smart, so I'm just assuming, that in Witch Era literature, there's a book called Eros and Eve by a guy named R.E.L. Masters.
Mm-hmm.
And he's talking, this is so fascinating, he's not talking about UFO abduction at all, whatsoever. Right. Never mentions it in a 300-page book. But he does talk about instances where, I'm just going to call it the phenomenon or the intelligence would abduct a witch out of her bed at nighttime, replace her with a familiar spirit. So when the husband gets up to get a glass of water or something, he thinks his wife is still with him. But the intelligence would kidnap her, replace her with a familiar spirit, fly her on what were considered to be, and this is the classical term for it, okay, demonic flights. And initially what happened is they would fly these witches over to a sabbat on like a hillside or on a mountaintop, and then it would encounter, I'm just going to say encounter them, it would be, it's a bad grammar, but it would induce them into a physical encounter. How about that? Kind of skirt around that. But in doing so, the witch thinks that she is encountering and dealing with either a demon or a corpse. And so the phenomenon is creating an entire theatrical production so as to play the role of the belief system this witch is involved in. And in this book by R.E.L. Masters, he details a rather unique manifestation where there's a crack in the mask. Because what started happening was the technology the phenomenon was employing, it was fuzzing in and out. And what was happening is that at what was once incubi or demons or corpses, these women are looking around and they're not even on a hilltop anymore. They have no idea where they are. Furthermore, these were not corpses or demons. They were being poked and prodded by metallic objects that were taking ova and inseminating them with fetuses. So this is another example, just one example of the phenomenon masking itself as demonic in order to hide from us, in order to veil itself in its true nature.
Why would these entities or these demons, why would they need to kidnap or steal a fetus? For what purpose?
Theories. Well, this gets back into the self-replication of species and into incubi and succubi literature. But the most valid theory I have heard to date is that these beings are placing their consciousness into these fetuses and using them as biological avatars. That is like I said, the most valid and cohesive theory I've heard.
All right, so why would these demons use humans instead of, well, apparently they're coming and they're doing their own dirty work, so to speak.
Yes, sir.
Why would they have to incorporate their will, their desire, their spirit into a fetus if they have the ability to just do it on their own?
It's a very good question. There's something about the womb. I call it the mortal portal, but there's something about the human womb that they are after. If we're going to look at the phenomenon as a whole, it's difficult not to see the esoteric connection with it. I mean, if we go back into history, like I said, in the 1950s,
right,
these beings were not manifesting to NASA. They were not manifesting to physicists or astronauts. They were manifesting and responding in seances. They were responding to what are called earthen altars and esoteric rites. In moving even forward with that thought, if these beings are in fact responding to incantations from ancient Mesopotamia, then we see a nuanced version of esotericism involved. Now, if that's the case, it opens the door for what's called fetus magic, where this is kind of hard to believe too, but I mean, still it's relevant. But essentially what they were doing in antiquity, this is from The Red Fez by Fritz Kramer and The Golden Bow by James Fraser, both are anthropologists. But what they were talking about is a rite of sorcery where, this gets back to why I believe some of these are sorcerers and magicians, where if the magician is dying, what he would do is he would go and inseminate a woman with a fetus. Now, we would consider that to be an incubus.
Right.
Absolutely. But we didn't realize what was occurring. And so he would inseminate her with the fetus. He would dispossess his own body and commandeer that new fetus as a biological avatar. Matter of fact, there are some researchers that believe this is exactly what happened to Aleister Crowley. Matter of fact, anyways, I don't want to ramble, brother.
No,
I tend to ramble sometimes.
It's all right. It's almost like it's demonic reincarnation.
Yes. Now,
but something I've noticed is that it seems that these demons aren't very smart, or they're not very technologically advanced. Because if they have to keep on stealing a fetus from a human, that means they do not have the technology to replicate full fetuses using DNA.
Correct, which is isn't that strange when you think about it? I mean, even now in the 21st century, we've created artificial wombs, and some say that we've created fetuses in those artificial wombs. For some reason, if these beings are that far ahead of us, why are they still wanting to create what I've considered to be an embryonic relationship with us?
Exactly. That's the same question you can ask about cattle mutilation. Why keep on why keep on abducting all these cows if you can fly across the universe and go through wormholes and you're so highly technologically advanced? One cow should suffice.
Absolutely, sir. Absolutely. Great point.
Yeah.
And yet they're still doing these, cattle mutilations. So there are things that make no sense whatsoever. And it's sad because, let me throw this at you real quick, brother.
Okay.
If I may.
You may.
Let's think about an intelligence that has possibly been here since the dawn of recorded history. Let's think about an intelligence that has evolved alongside of us. Mm-hmm. It is present with but absent from. Now, in the thousands of years, at least, that's conservative, thousands of years of our existence in written history, we have documented virtually nothing in terms of relevant data. We do not know its origin. We do not know its intent. We do not know its nature. We do not know its real appearance. And so what kind of intelligence could do that unless either there's a measure of control it has over us as a species?
You know what? I think I know exactly what's going on. They're hiding right in plain sight, because if you read the Bible and other religious books, it talks about the devil. It talks about the negative side. It talks about the Nephilim. These ancient texts are filled with these examples. Is it Is it possible that we're so naive that we believe we know everything, that the answers are right in front of us, and yet we refuse to accept them because they're old?
Yes, absolutely. And the great point, sir. I'll take that and I'll go a step further.
Please.
When we have researchers in the field
Mm-hmm.
that have spent 35 years studying only one incarnation, what they're doing to their own demise is excluding case studies
Mm-hmm.
from an earlier mass get employed in antiquity. So what do I mean by that? Well, let's look at this for a fleeting moment. We know for a fact that these beings have manifested as angels.
Yeah.
See Dr. Clark Turner's book, Masquerade of Angels.
Mm-hmm.
We know they've manifested as guides, that case study I mentioned previously.
Yep.
We know that they have manifested as ghosts and deceased loved ones. And like I said before, that the phenomenon evolves according to our awareness of it. We had 50 plus years, my friend, of us having the ability to test or, quote, test the spirits. If it is Dear Aunt Edna, it's going to act like Dear Aunt Edna. Its knowledge and belief system will match Dear Aunt Edna's historical record, right? And so there's a way that we can vet them. And so the phenomenon realized that. And so in an effort to evade, it evolved. And it introduced a new character into the program, one that cannot be vetted. And that's the ET.
All right. I can see where that has possibilities, but how do we prove it? This is what we need to do in order to get a lot more people on board, especially the scientific community, working with the religious different organizations.
Right.
All right. Well, I'm going to let you chew on that until we come back from our final break. Great talking to you. And Nathaniel Gillis is our guest, Exo Nation, on Instagram, the Nathaniel Gillis. And he also has a YouTube channel. Just go to YouTube and type in Nathaniel Gillis. We'll be back on the other side as the Exo continues with yours truly from our broadcast center and studios in St. Catharines, Ontario, Canada, on your hometown radio, Classic 1220. And streaming around the world, also on classic1220.ca. I'm Rob McConnell. We'll be back. Don't go away.
She's gonna tell you how to talk. Oh, her lips, they really thrill me. I'll take my chances, for romance is so important to me. She'll never hurt me, she won't desert me. She's an angel.
The devil went down to Georgia. He was looking for a soul to steal. He was in a bind because he was way behind and he was willing to make a deal. When he came across this young man sawing on a fiddle and playing it hot, and the devil jumped up on a hickory stump and said, "Boy, let me tell you what. I guess you didn't know it, but I'm a fiddle player too. And if you'd care to take a dare, I'll make a bet with you. Now you play pretty good fiddle, boy, but give the devil his due. I bet a fiddle of gold against your soul because I think I'm better than you." The boy said, "My name's Johnny, and it might be a sin, but I'll take your bet and you're gonna regret because I'm the best as ever been. Johnny, rosin up your bow and play your fiddle hard."
Exo Nation, we're talking about devils, we're talking about evil, we're talking about, oh my gosh, the darker side of the paranormal with my guest this hour, Nathaniel Gillis, and he's on Instagram, the Nathaniel Gillis. And before we get back to Nathaniel, I'd just like to remind everyone that the X-Zone is now from 10 p.m. until midnight, which means after Nathaniel, we have another guest coming on, who, by the way, is a former police detective who has a team of investigators and is part of an organization throughout Canada and the United States where only law enforcement officers actually do investigations of the paranormal. So that is coming up after the top of the hour. Nathaniel, first of all, before we go on, I'd like to thank you for joining us tonight. And can you tell us about some of the research that's out there going into the darker side of demonology? In fact, just demonology, because as far as I'm concerned, it's all kind of really dark.
Yes, sir. So right now, the field is being dominated by Catholic demonology, which there's nothing wrong with that.
Mm-hmm.
However, the phenomenon we're discussing tonight has eclipsed that microcosm. You know, there are certain rules that we were led to believe they follow that they simply do not follow. And so even evangelical researchers that I personally know that I'm friends with, they're having to adjust their model.
Wow.
Because if they're saying that these are Nephilim, then it starts to get into religious philosophy. Why would they, first of all, how would they know when people will die? How can they simulate, and these are just some things that they're capable of, and I can back these up with case studies. How can they simulate near-death experiences? How can they peel souls out of bodies? In all of this, it points to, again, an intelligence that is playing by different rules. In much of these rules that we thought they were playing by were merely the byproduct of the mask they employed. And so, like I said, evangelical researchers, they're starting to realize that, listen, if these are in fact demonic in nature, we're in for it. Like we were in for a battle, because there's something completely different.
Is it possible that we're trying to overthink the entire scenario, that we're using modern technology to try and solve ancient mysteries?
Yes, 100%. And to a large degree, what we're witnessing with this intelligence is, in fact, ancient technology. I mean, take a look at this for a second, my friend. If you look at the necromantic rituals of Mesopotamia and in biblical antiquity, one of them was called the teraphim. And this gets back into, building altars, which they responded to, and performing these incantations. But in biblical antiquity, in the Levant, there was a necromantic ritual where the necromancer would go and dig up, either he would dig up a corpse or he would go find a living person, and he would carve the name of an unclean spirit into a small piece of metal and implant it into the body of an individual. And the consciousness of that entity would commandeer that person's body and wear it as what's called a social skin. Now, again, in modernity, we know that as the implant. But its root, its origin is not found, again, it's not found in just technology, but it's rooted in the fertile soil of esotericism and sorcery. Now, can I go a little bit further with this?
Oh, yes, please.
Okay, now there was a group. It probably still exists under a different name. The 1950s, there was a group called the Collins Elite. And I know a lot of people in ufology frown on them for certain reasons, which I can understand to a degree. But the Collins Elite were a part of the Department of Defense. Many of them were physicists, but their goal was to search out any and all interconnectivities between ufology and the occult. And one of the experiments they ran, it's phenomenal. But what they did is they went to England and they scooped up soil samples found in authentic crop circles. They put them underneath a microscope and they documented a unique energy signature and a cellular anomaly in that sample. They then went into their laboratory, hired a practitioner of sorcery or magic, and asked them to read incantations from this grimoire that they had in an effort to physically or spiritually harm someone. It's going to blow your mind. It blew my mind, at least. And once the incantation was successful and the phenomenon manifested, they then went around that laboratory and collected samples. Some of them were soil. But anyways, they compared these soil samples and other samples from the environment. They compared the environment with the incantations to the soil from the crop circle, and they discovered that they both shared the identical cellular anomaly and the identical energy signature. This led them to believe that not only were these beings manifesting to earthen altars and to practitioners of magic, but that there is a major portion of what they're doing that consists of dark sorcery, which I will refer back to the case study where they carved religious amulets into the flesh. So it's all pointing in that direction.
Is there any connection with, in your opinion, with the increased number of demonic sightings, demonic possessions, general sociological interest in demons, and the Hadron Collider?
To a degree, it's disturbing because, okay, even our federal government is trying to do what they're trying to do over there. Essentially, the idea is if we can open up a portal, if we can build an altar that's big enough,
Right.
if we can say an incantation that's successful enough, these beings will enlighten us and give us certain what are called magical technologies. This gets back into Jack Parsons and Aleister Crowley. The problem is, and this is what the Collins elite discovered, the problem is when we think that we have them under our control, what we're realizing is that we are being manipulated and that they have been in control the entire time.
Let me ask you something here. A lot of people who investigate the dark side of the paranormal claim that holy water and religious artifacts have a protective value when it comes to personal attacks or even exorcisms. If these people, God, I'm giving them more credit than they deserve. If these creatures are so powerful, why would holy water or a crucifix or even a prayer affect them?
Well, if you look at, okay, so this is very interesting. Now, there was a Franciscan priest named Father Sinister de Mino, and he was dealing with incubi case studies where these beings were carving amulets underneath people's eyelids. But one day, when he was on his way home from dinner, he was on a dirt road, and according to his testimony, a demon manifested in front of him. And he used his holy water, employed all of his amulets, and nothing worked. Absolutely nothing. And so he was forced to categorize this entity, and this is so funny to me, personally, I think it's hilarious, as a pagan demon. Religion defines what's demonic, but it was a pagan demon. Yeah. And so what we're realizing, I mean, you know, there are beings that seemingly, and this is a very conservative way of saying it, but they seemingly follow those rules. And the problem is this, that you have an entire religious movement that bases the validity of their doctrine on the success of their exorcisms. Meanwhile, and this is a fact, meanwhile, we have case studies where during investigations, the priest will go into the haunted house, put a vial of holy water in a room, and while they're trying to collect EVPs, that entity is siphoning the holy water right out of the vial.
So much
They're
for
playing by different rules.
Yeah, you know what? You've just put a whole new spin on the Immaculate Conception.
Yes, in terms of the incubi, or
And the Immaculate Conception of Mary and the birth of Christ.
Absolutely, my friend.
Yeah.
And it does seem to be afterlife phenomena. I mean, even in Egyptology, they had what's called the image of the invisible, and that is exactly, I think, what we're seeing. And anyways, but yeah, so that's what I believe is occurring. As I know we're going to wrap it up here in a little bit.
Yeah.
But these beings are playing by different rules because they're playing a different game. And the problem that we're having right now on the field is we're ignorant of the game.
Well, I think part of the problem is that, like you were saying, they don't play by our rules because they're playing with, in my opinion, they're playing with techniques and manifestations that are totally out of our sphere of comprehension.
Absolutely, sir. And sadly enough, and people need to understand where I'm coming from. I grew up in the evangelical movement. My dad is a pastor.
Wow.
And so I've lost a lot of evangelical friends because I'm trying to get them to realize that if these beings are in fact demons, then we have to we have to grow out of the dogma and grow into the data. And, their capabilities, it's beyond the modern conception of the demonic.
We've got about a minute that I'd like you to share a message with the Exo Nation and enlighten them within that minute on what they can do in case they believe, they feel that they are part of a demonic or a demon's wish, to manifest and to take over one.
Well, first of all, for the sake of research, document anything and everything you can. Second of all, there is one common thematic element, both in history and in modernity. It is the thing that they are the most afraid of, at least according to the data, and that is iron.
Iron.
Wow. Either iron amulets. I'd recommend an iron cross. And I can give you case studies, but we don't have time.
We don't have time now, but we'll certainly have you back in the future, Nathaniel. I want to thank you so much for joining us, and just keep the great work up and keep us abreast of what's happening. And if there's any earth-shattering demonic research that brings up some information to light that would be of a great asset to our audience, get a hold of me and we'll get you on as soon as we can.
Yes, sir. Thank you again for having me on. It was wonderful. Thank
My
you.
great pleasure. Take care of yourself. Be safe.
You too, buddy.
Bye-bye now. Nathaniel Gillis has been our guest this hour, Exo Nation, and if you'd like to find him on Instagram, it's the Nathaniel Gillis, and on YouTube, just type in Nathaniel Gillis. I'll be back on the other side of this commercial break as we continue for hour number 2 here in the X Zone from our broadcast center and studios in St. Catharines, Ontario, Canada, on Classic 1220. And we're streaming around the world on classic1220.ca. Don't go away, I'll be back in about 2 minutes.